Okay, let's get started this morning. Good morning. My name is Christian Lotta, CPA. I'm president of the California Board of Accountancy. Welcome to our March 13th, 2026 meeting. The CBA welcomes and encourages public participation throughout the meeting. Members of the public have an opportunity to provide comment in person here in Hayward or via the WebEx platform. Instructions on how to make a public comment will be provided whenever a comment period is open. You will be allotted up to 5 minutes for public comment. Ms. Reed, can you please establish a quorum?
Doug Aguilera,
Present.
Patricia Batchelor,
Here.
Nancy Corrigan,
Nancy Corrigan, present.
Nancy Dong,
Present.
Yanita Guzman,
Present.
Carrie Ann Farrell Hines,
Here.
Christian Lotta,
Present.
Tony Lynn,
Here.
Bruce Rafel,
Here.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Here.
Teresa Thompson,
Here.
Yen Tu,
Here.
and Abigail Zielinski.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. The CBA's mission is to protect consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with established professional standards. This mission is derived from the statutory requirement that protection of the public shall be the highest priority for the California Board of Accountancy in exercising its licensing, regulatory, and disciplinary functions. Whenever the protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. We will now begin our agenda item 1, and that is for public comments for items not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments here in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator, are there any members of the public online?
This is the moderator, and currently we have no members of the public logged into WebEx. I'll let you know when that changes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we will move on to agenda item number 2, the report of the president. Our first item is discussion and update regarding the California Board of Accountancy 125th anniversary activities. Our 2026 CBA meetings will have a fun and new way to start my president's reports with a special item celebrating the CBA's 125th anniversary. Throughout the year, I will update you on our anniversary celebration and all the different ways we are marking this milestone. Staff has been at work researching important events and facts from the 125-year history of the CBA, and we will be showcasing a lot of these findings in update articles and social media posts this year. As you can imagine, a lot has changed since the CBA was founded in 1901. How many members were on the original board? When was the first public member appointed? When did the CBA move to Sacramento? These are many and more interesting questions will be answered during our 125th anniversary celebration. A comprehensive timeline of the board's history will be created, and you can see a quick preview of some of the events that will make up the timeline on page 2 of the item. The full design timeline will be shared across the next 3 issues of the update newsletter. Alongside the timeline, staff is organizing a variety of multimedia content based around the 125th anniversary year theme, including videos, podcasts, social media posts, and more. One video in particular that's coming up soon is a video of prominent CPAs and former CBA members sending their birthday wishes. This will be published on March 23rd, which is the exact date that the CBA was initially established in 1901. Several anniversary initiatives are already complete, beginning with the 125-year anniversary logo, which I mentioned in January, and that you can see displayed on pages 1 and 3 of the item. Last month at the Capitol, Senator Roger Nilo, who is a CPA himself, introduced Senate Concurrent Resolution 111 to mark the board's 125-year anniversary. I attended the event along with CBA staff and representatives from the California Society of CPAs. Staff published our first press release of the year to announce the resolution. Another release is planned for the month leading up to our March 23rd birthday. You may also remember posing for a photograph earlier this year. That was in fact also a historical moment. Commemorative photos were taken of CBA members and staff around the start of 2026 to help remember the 125-year anniversary milestone. The board photo was featured on the cover of Update 108 released last month. I am very much looking forward to seeing these plans materialize and updating you on more of the celebrations over the course of the year as they happen. Do we have any member comments on this item? Seeing none, any public comments here on item 2A in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator, are there any members of the public online?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Okay, so we can move on to agenda item 2B, which is our National Association of State Boards of Accountancy Committee interest form. This item provides members with information regarding opportunities to participate on committees with the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. NASBA announced that those interested in serving on the committee for 2026-2027 should complete the online committee interest form no later than May 1st, 2026. An overview of the time commitment for participation on a NASBA committee is provided in the attachments. DCA's Office of Professional Examination Services reviewed the NASBA 2026 and 2027 committee charges and the time requirements and believes a conflict of interest would exist if a member were to serve on the CPA Examination Review Board or the Examination Administration Committee. Please note that any CBA member that is currently serving on a NASBA committee for the 2025-2026 committee year and would like to continue that committee will need to reapply for the new committee year. If you do not reapply, the NASBA will assume that you no longer wish to serve. To ensure that staff track CBA members' interest, please email Ms. Reed when you submit an interest form and provide the committees you are seeking appointment to. If you have any questions regarding NASBA committees, please contact Ms. Reed. And we also have members already serving on committees, so if you're interested and you haven't done that yet, feel free to reach out to members who are already serving on those committees to get some insight as well. All right, do we have any board comments or questions about item 2B? Seeing none, are there any public comments here in Hayward on this item? Seeing none, moderator, are there still no members of the public online?
Correct. There are still no members of the public online.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll be moving on to agenda item 2C, which is our discussion and possible action to adopt the proposed 2027 California Board of Accountancy meeting dates, and I will turn this over to Ms. Reed.
Good morning. Item 2C provides members with a list of the proposed 2027 meeting dates, CBA meeting dates. Staff have selected the dates to avoid major and religious holidays. Staff have also selected dates to try and avoid spring and fall breaks for colleges and universities to increase outreach options in conjunction with CBA meetings. And the CBA may choose to make a motion to adopt or modify the proposed meeting dates. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to President Lotta to request a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Ms. Tu.
Yes, I would like to move the motion.
Okay, I have a second from Mr. Rafel. Thank you.
Okay,
Are-
a quick point about it. Do you want to move to adopt the
Adopt
correct
the-
dates? Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Do we have any questions or comments from members in the public here in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator, there are still no members of the public online?
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Reed, please take the vote.
Member Aguilera,
Yes.
Member Bachelor,
Yes.
Member Corrigan,
Yes.
Member Dong,
Yes.
Member Guzman,
Yes.
Member Hine.
Yes.
Member Lotta,
Yes.
Member Lynn,
Yes.
Member Rafel.
Yes.
Member Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Tu,
Yes.
and Member Zelensky.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2D, review, discussion, and possible action to take positions on pending legislation the California Board of Accountancy is monitoring. This item is a written report only, so we won't go through the details. However, are there any board comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, any public comment here in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator confirming there are no members of the public online?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our agenda item 2E. Department of Consumer Affairs Director's Report on Departmental Activities. This presentation will be given by Lucia Saldivar, Deputy Director, Board and Bureau Relations, Department of Consumer Affairs. I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, board members and staff. My name is Lucia Saldivar, and I'm the Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations at the California Department of Consumer Affairs. Firstly, thank you so much for the opportunity to provide some brief updates from the department. first to start, to best serve the public, it's incumbent upon all of us to ensure that we are being fiscally prudent in our decisions, especially when it comes to traveling for board business. So DCA would like to remind members and staff to book their travel in advance, to secure the best rates, and to also evaluate if a rental car is always necessary versus ride sharing. Carpooling is also highly encouraged when renting vehicles. We know there might be some new travel costs that board members are experiencing as well, such as travel baggage charges. So please keep receipts to ensure that you can be reimbursed. DCA also wanted to provide a reminder about Form 700 Statement of Economic Interest filings for board members. These forms must be filed within 30 days of assuming or leaving your appointment and annually by April 1st. This year's annual filing period covers the prior calendar year, which is January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. And the deadline for filing is quickly approaching when it's Wednesday, April 1st, 2026. But to ensure compliance, DCA requests that Form 700 filers complete their e-filing by Friday, March 20th, 2026. DCA board members must file Form 700s through the FPPC's online portal. Paper filings will no longer be accepted. You should have received an email from the FPPC with instructions on how to file your Form 700. But if you have any questions about filing your Form 700, please contact Board and Bureau Relations at memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. And also some training updates for board members. You may have heard that DCA's training unit developed an unconscious bias training that's specifically for board members. And this training has been added to members' LMS accounts, known as the Learning Management System. And it's going to be incorporated into the onboarding process for all newly appointed members. Also, board member orientation training, known as BMOT, is an all-day virtual training that DCA will offer on April 1st, which is quickly approaching. This training must be completed by board members within 1 year of appointment and reappointment to the board. We also have some additional training dates on June 24th and October 21st. Please register for the first available date to be in compliance, and board members can register for BMOT using LMS. If you need assistance accessing these trainings, or if you want to check whether you're in compliance, please contact us at memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. And to close, thank you all for all that you do to protect California's consumers. I'm available to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for your presentation. Do we have any board member comments or questions for this item? Seeing none, any public comments here in Hayward on this item? Seeing none, moderator confirming there are no members of the public online?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Moving
you.
on to agenda item 3, the report of the vice president. I will turn this over to Doug Aguilera.
Thank you, President Lotta. This item is to recommend the appointment of Christine Donnelly, CPA, and Matt Clutterbuck, CPA, to the Enforcement Advisory Committee. The Enforcement Advisory Committee assists the CBA in an advisory capacity with enforcement activities. This includes reviewing closed investigation files, providing technical guidance on open investigations, and participating in investigative hearings. I've confirmed with the CBA Executive Officer to verify that Ms. Donnelly and Mr. Clutterbuck have met the appropriate requirements for license renewal and have demonstrated the skills and knowledge to serve as a member on the Enforcement Advisory Committee. I would like to make a motion to appoint Christine Donnelly, CPA, and Matt Clutterbuck, CPA, to the Enforcement Advisory Committee effective through March 31st, 2028. I'll now turn it back to President Lotta to ask for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilera. Do I have a second? Mr. Rayful, thank you. Any members of the public here in Hayward have any comments? Seeing none, moderator confirming no members of the public online?
We do have a member of the public
Okay.
online. So if that member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name, or you can press *3 if you've called in. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, moderator. Ms. Reed, please take the vote.
Member Zelinski,
Yes.
member 2,
Yes.
member Thompson,
Yes.
member Rosenbaum,
Yes.
member Rayful.
Yes.
Member Lynn,
Yes.
member Lotta,
Yes.
member Hines,
Yes.
member Guzman,
Yes.
member Dong,
Yes.
member Corrigan,
Yes.
member Batchelor,
Yes.
member Aguilera.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilera. Please continue with item 2B, or sorry, 3B.
Thank you, President Lotta. This item is to recommend the reappointment of Rennie Chow, CPA, to the Qualifications Committee. The Qualifications Committee assists the CBA in its licensure activities by reviewing the experience of applicants for licensure and making recommendations to the CBA. This includes conducting work paper reviews with the applicant or the employer present to verify that the responses provided are reflective of the requisite experience for licensure. I've confirmed with the CBA executive officer to verify that Mr. Chow has met the appropriate requirements for license renewal and has demonstrated the skills and knowledge to serve as a member on the qualifications committee. I would like to make a motion to appoint Rennie Chow, CPA, to the Qualifications Committee effective through March 31st, 2028. And I'll now turn it back to President Lotta to ask for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilera. I just wanted to clarify that for item 3B, we didn't have any appointments or reappointments for the Peer Review Oversight Committee. So the item just presented was for the Qualifications Committee for item 3C, just to clarify. Any board comments?
I was just gonna second.
Mr. Rayful, second.
A second.
Okay, we'll take that second again. Any board comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, any public comment here in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator, please open WebEx for public comment.
Thank you, Madam President. If any member of the public would like to comment, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name, or if you've called in, pressing *3. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. I see no request for comment. I return the floor back to you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Reed, please take the vote.
Member Aguilera,
Yes.
member Batchelor,
Yes.
member Corrigan,
Yes.
member Dong,
Yes.
member Guzman,
Yes.
member Hines,
Yes.
member Lotta,
Yes.
member Lynn,
Yes.
member Rayful.
Yes.
Member Rosenbaum,
Yes.
member Thompson,
Yes.
member 2,
Yes.
and member Zelinski.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. We're moving along very efficiently today. Next, we're on item 4, report of the Secretary Treasurer. I will pass it along to Ms. Batchelor for that report.
Thank you, President Lotta. Good morning. I'm Patricia Batchelor, Secretary Treasurer. And today I've provided for your review is the mid-year financial report, which covers the period of July 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. The CBA's budget authority is $20,026,000, and it reflects a $157,000 net decrease from the amount originally contained in the governor's budget due to statewide cost-saving measures. The table on page 2 reflects CBA revenues through December 31st, 2025, and totaled $12,443,567. Revenue is anticipated to exceed $22 million by the end of the fiscal year. The expenditure table on page 3 reflects actual expenditures as of December 31st, 2025, which total $9.93 million and represents approximately 49% of the annual budget. As of the end of December, the CBA is projected to end the fiscal year with a budget surplus of 3.5%. Page 4, it contains a table comparing current and prior fiscal year spending. The information reflects an overall increase of 1.1% in spending when compared to this same period from last fiscal year. Pages 5 through 7, that presents detailed explanations of each major expenditure line item, describing the types of services billed and highlighting notable changes in spending compared to the prior fiscal year. And last, the fund condition analysis, which is on page 9, reflects increased revenue from the July 1st, 2024 fee increase and projected revenue for the second step of the fee increase that will occur on July 1st, 2026. The additional revenues are having a positive impact on the CBA's fund balance and months in reserve. Uh, This concludes my presentation of the Secretary Treasurer report. I am happy to answer and have staff available to answer any questions members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Batchelor. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? I have a couple of questions myself. So on line 2 on the expenditures report on page 3 for temp positions, the governor's budget is 0, but we're projecting 105,000 for the year. Are we okay with those variances as long as overall we're under the governor's budget?
Yes, that is accurate.
And my next question is just for both pages 3 and 4, line 22, information technology. I noticed for expenditures, we're projecting about 4 times the budget, and then for actuals compared to prior year, there was a 548% increase noted. Is that just due to our business modernization project mostly?
1 second.
Okay.
A little bit with business modernization. A lot of it's with the software agreement for the business modernization. So that's a big chunk of it. And then a lot of our IT security subscriptions that we're paying. So that kind of contributes to that number.
So we should just expect increases in this category since that's a big focus for our strategic plan, correct?
Yeah, I would say that number is going to increase. I just recently met with our budget manager, and we're going to look at how that number has been increasing over the prior years to see if we should or could go in to get an increase in that budget authority for that line item. So we can, 10 years ago, this number was very, very low. Now with business modernization and a lot of the subscriptions that we're doing, this number just keeps increasing. So we're going to look and see if there's some budget increase we can do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, Ms. Tu?
Thank you. I remember from January, we had a discussion regarding some of the investigative CPA position that's going to be eliminated because you cannot find people that are willing to do so for the salary that we pay and all the stuff like that. Where we're moving to a model of consulting, where would that be? What line item? Would it be the external consulting?
Yes, it'll be line item 16. We don't have any of those contracts executed yet, but when we do, that's where the amount will be lumped in. But then we'll also be kind of pulling those costs out so you can get a specific, view of those. And we'll include those on the enforcement expenditures, which right now is on page 8. So once we have any of those costs, we'll pull them out so you'll be able to see them.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Franzella?
Sorry, I just want to clarify one thing. We're not eliminating any of the positions. We're not able to fill or recruit them, and we have a limited number, but we're not eliminating the positions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional board comments or questions?
I have a question about the outside consultants. With those, is that a hybrid type of employment for the consultants, or they can be virtual?
So they're not, it's not temp help, it's not employment.
Okay.
It's a contract for services in terms of we will have a contract with a lot of number of hours
Mhm.
and we'll authorize hours. And so it's not a temp type position,
Okay.
8 to 5 or any of that.
I see. So they can be anywhere from,
We have
Like
some
Southern-
criteria around them, but yes, they would be operating as just like we hired a firm.
virtual. Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, any additional member comments or questions? Seeing none, any public comments here in Hayward on this item? Seeing none, moderator, please open WebEx for public comment.
Thank you, Madam President. If any member of the public would like to comment, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name, or if you've called in, pressing *3. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. I see no requests for comment. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, moderator. Moving on to agenda item number 4B, discussion and possible action regarding assessment of credit card transaction fees. I will turn it over to Ms. Pierce for her presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, President Lada and members of the board. The CBA is being asked to consider whether to continue paying the processing fees associated with online credit card payments for CPA exam applicants, CPA licensure applicants, and license renewals for CPAs and CPA firms. Currently, the CBA pays all associated fees, which average approximately 1.9% per transaction. The CBA has previously discussed assessment of credit card transaction fees and has opted to pay these costs to promote credit card usage, ease entry into the accounting profession, and reduce manual payment handling. Over the past 3 fiscal years, these fees have become a significant and increasing expenditure. Since fiscal year 22-23, the CBA has paid more than $700,000 in transaction fees. And with recent and upcoming changes, including the launch of credit card payments for CPA exam applicants and the second phase of the fee increase effective July 1, 2026, the costs are going to continue increasing. Credit card usage across programs remains consistently high, and this is going to trend upward as reflected on page 2 of the report. The CBA will be facing increased expenditures related to its business modernization initiative and the transition to using expert consultants within its enforcement program. Further, user-paid transaction fees are more common today than when the CBA began accepting credit card payments several years ago. Given the upward trend in costs and the need to remain good stewards of the CBA's resources, staff have prepared 2 options for the CBA to consider regarding possible changes to who pays the credit card transaction fees. Under option 1, the CBA would transition to a standard convenience fee model in which all credit card transaction fees across all applicant and license types are paid by the user. Page 3 identifies the cost of each of the transaction types and associated fee. Under option 2, the CBA would continue paying the transaction fees for CPA exam applicants and initial CPA licensure while passing transaction fees for CPA and CPA firm license renewals to the user. Staff recommends option 2. This approach maintains reduced financial barriers to entry into the profession while saving approximately $300,000 annually, funds that may be redirected to support upcoming expenditures as previously mentioned. If approved, implementation would require updates to communication materials and coordination with the credit card processing vendor to support a smooth transition and would be targeted for July 1, 2026. That concludes my presentation on this agenda item. I'll now turn it back over to President Lada, and I'm happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. Do we have any, Ms. Tu?
Yes, I have a question regarding the, when you do pay, I realize this item regarding credit card, but when you do go in to pay, is there an option to do ARC transfer, bank account transfer of funds to pay? Or debit, some kind of ACH, that's the word I was looking for, ACH.
So there isn't presently. We can add that in, but there's still the same processing fee.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Okay, because
I know some others don't. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Ms.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
DMV does allow that and does not
Yeah,
have to pay.
Yeah, the DMV and possibly other agencies have a different setup. The DMV on the IT side of things, they host all of the credit card data, all the information at DMV networks and servers. This is not how this is set up. So they have some different options because of how they're storing a lot of that information. We don't store any of the credit card information when somebody pays. We send them to Elevon, is the credit card processing vendor, and everything is handled with them. So it's
Therefore, the
apples and pears or apples and oranges a little bit. Yeah.
Is there a cost to add? Oh, no, since we have to pay the fee, applicant would have to still,
Yeah.
never mind, that won't work.
We certainly can add ACH. It's just, we're going to still pay it, or if we do the convenience fee model, they're going to be paying the fee the same as a credit card.
Right.
Ms. Zielinski.
Actually, that was going to be my question, and a follow-up to that, can we look into other vendors that would, I guess, not charge or charge a more nominal ACH authorization fee? Like I belong to the State Bar of California. I don't know who they use, but there's no fee for ACH. And then I think there's a standardized like 3.5% for credit card fees.
Unfortunately, at this point, we are required to use mandatory state contracts that have been developed between the Department of General Services and the various credit card processing vendors. So that's not something that we have the option of doing at this moment. So we're kind of limited in terms of the vendor that we use. And right now, that's what the vendor offers and charges.
Ms. Tu, did you have a follow-up to that
Yeah,
conversation?
so the credit card vendor, is that fee negotiated or the state already negotiated that?
The state, yeah, the Department of General Services, they establish these statewide mandatory contracts. And so that's who has negotiated it. And we're required to use that established contract.
Mr. Rosenbaum?
Now, just on option two, when you say you're gonna pass it on, is that pass it on by building it into the fee, or is that adding the 2.5%?
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. They would be paying that in addition to. So the renewal fee under option two would be they would pay the license, for example, the license renewal fee of $407.60. So it would be $407.60 would be the transaction amount.
And what is the option if someone didn't want to pay them the 7% or the $7? Would they send a check?
Yeah, they would have to, right now, because we've transitioned to the Connect and online renewal system, we send a postcard notifying them of renewal. So if they wanted to send a check or money order or whatever, they would have to contact the Board of Accountancy. We would need to send them a hard copy license renewal form, and then they would mail that with a check into our office for processing.
So the fee percentage for option two is still the suggested 2.3% or the 1.9%?
So the option two is to pay the fee for entry in for us. The board would still be paying the fee for first time repeat initial CPA licensure. We would be paying that and the cost would be 1.9%. The transaction fee for license renewal would be transferred to the user and that would be at 2.3%.
And where does the 2.3% come from?
It's the convenience fee. So there's a fee we pay. If we're paying it, it's one fee. It's 1.9%. If we transition that fee to the user and they're paying it, then it's 2.3%.
Okay, understood. Ms. Batchelor, did you have a question?
That was my question.
Yeah.
Answered. Thanks.
Ms. Hines?
Was there an analysis done of how much it cost us to manually process checks and money orders that spurred us transitioning to credit cards so that we could see what the savings was on moving over to credit card processing rather than doing check and money order processing? And I'm asking that question because if we transition to using credit cards because it was going to save us money, because it was more expensive to process checks and money orders, then wouldn't the board have, the agency have already realized some savings that could then offset the costs of absorbing the transaction fee?
So the original reason we went to online credit cards was really user demand.
Mhm.
It wasn't to address internal processing, manual handling. It was because we were getting significant feedback from the profession and from applicants to have an online option for payment for license renewal, which is where it started, and then for initial licensure. So that really wasn't the impetus in terms of the manual handling. We have done a fee analysis. I think it's been about 2 years ago. So we do have some of those costs in terms of, what it takes to, and it's not just processing it, it's sending the forms out, it's handling it in the mailroom. I mean, it's a whole series of, costs. So that really wasn't the core reason. It was really user request or user demand. The feedback we were getting from the profession, the applicants on our client services, customer satisfaction survey. So that was the reason.
Mr. Franzella?
And I know, Ms. Pierce, and I believe it's in the paper as well. Again, this started when the board made the initial decision to absorb the fee. It was to encourage people to use the online system. The other part that I think is important to remember there is at any point, I can't quite recall when we started that process, but the renewal fee has fluctuated from as low as $50. So, and to 120 to 200. So that absorption was fairly nominal when it was at $50 or $200. It's become obviously a much bigger portion as we've had to increase that fee as well. So some of the board's decision-making process, to Ms. Pierce's point, was never about cost saving or staff savings, cost savings internally. It was to address demand. And it seemed reasonable to absorb at that time as that fee has gone up and it's become a bigger portion of our of cost. It's another reason why we brought it up almost every time we've had a fee increase or a change to the fee. I think we brought something back to the board to discuss it. And so we're coming up on this next go round. And so we're here to talk about it again.
Mr. Aguilera?
Because this is such a small portion of our budget, and because we continue to raise fees over these next few years, and because we do have a healthy surplus, I would rather us not have the licensee absorb this fee, at least for this year. Maybe reconsider it next year or in a couple of years after the license fee increases have settled down.
Any other board member comments or questions? Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yeah, that was, I guess, to emphasize consumer demand for using credit cards as opposed to checks. What does option 3 look like? And option 3 would be stay the course and absorb all the credit card fees.
Yeah, and I guess from staff's perspective, the concern really just becomes we have, as Mr. Aguilera was pointing out, somewhat of a healthy reserve and reversion, but I don't anticipate that to continue. With business modernization, we're able to absorb a lot of our business modernization need because of the reversion, but we're going to be eating up more of that as we continue to expand services and need to bring on enforcement. And then with the enforcement contracts and the consultant contracts. So as the paper points out, we've absorbed close to $700,000 to date, and next year would be another $300 plus $1,000. So there's just the impact there. So.
Ms. Zelinski?
Does it show in here what the percentages of users are using credit card versus mailing in paper checks?
I don't have that in the paper here, but it's pretty high. For the CPA, I mean, I can tell you just kind of off the top of my head. For the CPA exams, which we just launched in November, where our usage is at 96%, just over a couple of months, just based on that. Our license renewal is about low 90%. The CPA firm renewal is probably the lowest, but it's also the newest one that's come on board. I think it's around 60% user. The CPA application fee and initial licensure fee is also, I think, at about 98% usage. So we have pretty high usage on the credit cards.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lin?
I would like to know about if successfully have the saving, how do we redirect those back to the expenditure or to the budget? If implemented by the middle of this year, would those be our surplus to the budget?
So if the board were to make a change, either way, we would see unspent funds in that particular line item. So it would just, any of the unspent funds would be reverted into our accountancy fund at the end of next fiscal year. Is that
Any other comments or questions from the board? I have a question or a comment really quick. I think that in light of having just raised our license fees, I think our licensees are feeling the impact of that currently and will continue once the second wave of that increases in the summer. So I am hesitant to increase or require them to absorb this fee. However, also, no matter, I don't think this decision will impact the usage because most younger population of our applicants don't have checks or money orders. Like most, even if you're older in this day and age, a lot of people don't maintain those. So I think they're going to use the credit card service regardless. I think it's more of a perception thing than it is like an impact of what they actually will do. I think regardless, they're going to continue to use the credit card. Like I'm not gonna go out of my way to send a check or go get a money order at the bank just to avoid a $7 fee. So I think that's something to consider. I do like Mr. Aguilera's idea of potentially revisiting this next year once that fee, the total increase, we see the impact of that. I think it is important to look to the future and see how much these fees are increasing for the board to fully absorb. So I do think it's an important thing to discuss, but I am in favor of potentially holding off or potentially doing option 2. Ms. Thompson.
I would just like to come out in support of option 2. I think it's a fair compromise between the initial applicant's costs and then the recurring costs. I also think it's becoming standard to pass through these fees to consumers. Like I know personally, when I pay utilities, all of my utility companies, I have to pay the extra fee. It's just you check the box, whatever. So I don't think that it's, yes, it's an additional $7, but I don't think it's a red flag. I think it's becoming very commonplace. And so, yes, today the board has a surplus. However, the average of these costs have increased 50 to 60K a year. I think, yeah, we could revisit in a year or we could just execute today because I think in a year we're going to execute. So that's sort of my point of view on this.
Mr. Rafel?
At the risk of concluding this discussion, I'd like to move we adopt option 2.
Do I have a second? Ms. Corrigan?
Yes, I second that motion. Thank you.
Any additional board comments or questions? Seeing none, any comments or questions from the members of the public here in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator, please open WebEx for public comment.
Thank you, Madam President. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name, or if you've called in, pressing *3. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. I see no request for comment. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, moderator. Ms. Reed, please take the vote.
Member Zelinski,
Yes.
member 2,
No.
member Thompson,
Yes.
member Rosenbaum,
Yes.
member Rafel,
Yes.
member Lynn,
Yes.
member Lotta,
Yes.
member Hines,
No.
member Guzman,
Yes.
member Dong,
No.
member Corrigan,
Yes.
member Batchelor,
Yes.
member Aguilera.
No.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed, and thank you, Mr. Rafel, for getting our decision moving along there. Okay, so now we are on agenda item 5A. First, we're doing the report of the executive officer. That first item is review and possible action to approve proposed changes to the California Board of Accountancy Member Guidelines and Procedures Manual. I will pass it on to Deanne Pierce, Chief of the Administration Division, for that report.
Thank you, President Alata. The CBA Member Guidelines and Procedures Manual, or GMP Manual, serves as a reference guide regarding the roles and functions of the CBA, CBA committees, and members. On an annual basis, staff present proposed changes to the GMP Manual for CBA consideration. During staff's review for 2026, there were more significant changes identified. The last time the GMP Manual was reorganized and restated was in January 2010. Staff is working to propose a modernized and revised GMP manual, which we anticipate being presented at the July CBA meeting. However, in the interim, there are two areas of the GMP manual that are time sensitive, and staff is seeking CBA member input and possible approval. The first is the executive officer evaluation process. The evaluation process has evolved over the years. While the current language in the GMP manual is accurate, it doesn't provide a clear overview of the steps and timeframes involved in executing the EO evaluation. To ensure clarity for all members, the executive officer and the Department of Consumer Affairs' Office of Human Resources, staff is proposing a more detailed description and timeline of the process as identified in Attachment 1. The second item relates to CBA and committee member per diem, which is the $100 stipend members receive for each day spent discharging their duties. As stated in the GMP manual, per diem can be claimed for a variety of reasons. However, recently, CBA members have asked for clarification regarding what activities qualify for per diem and whether the activity must be a full day. As stated previously, this is one of the areas of the GMP manual that has not evolved in many years. To modernize and more accurately account for per diem, staff are proposing changes which are reflected in Attachment 2. Specifically, staff propose that members can submit a request for per diem for any CBA-related activity in as little as 30-minute increments. Once the time reported reaches 8 hours, a day of per diem will be paid at the rate of $100. If an activity exceeds 4 hours in a single day, such as a CBA meeting, a full day of per diem will be paid. Further, the CBA is nearing the completion of an electronic per diem reporting process that will ease the reporting for members. It is anticipated that the new process will launch in April or May of 26. Staff recommend that the CBA make a motion to adopt the proposed changes to the executive officer evaluation process and the per diem for CBA-related activities. I'll turn it back to the president, and I'm happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. Any board questions or comments on this item? I had a question, Ms. Pierce. If we approve this today, when is the effective date of the per diem changes? Would it be today or is it a future date?
I would say today.
Okay. So if I were to submit a reimbursement claim, or is this only per diem? This doesn't involve like the travel claim reimbursements? That's separate?
This is specific to the per diem, the $100 a day. The travel expense claim reimbursement process is really overseen by Department of General Services. So there's no change in that except for the reporting that we may transition to in terms of how to report your travel expense claims.
Okay. And so if I submitted a per diem for an approved activity that occurred prior to today, would the new process be applicable or the previous?
I would say, just as is my thought, that it would be the previous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of the date of when it occurred.
That would be my suggestion.
Okay. Mr. Rafel?
I move we adopt the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Rosenbaum? Any additional board comments or questions? Seeing none, any public comments here in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator, please open WebEx for public comment.
Thank you, Madam President. If any member of the public would like to comment, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name, or if you've called in, pressing *3. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. I see no requests for comment. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, moderator. Ms. Reed, please take the vote.
Member Aguilera?
Yes.
Member Batchelor?
Yes.
Member Corrigan?
Yes.
Member Dong?
Yes.
Member Guzman?
Yes.
Member Hines?
Yes.
Member Lotta?
Yes.
Member Lynn?
Yes.
Member Rafel?
Yes.
Member Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Member Thompson?
Yes.
Member 2?
Yes.
Member Zelinski?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Moving on to agenda item 5B, the administration activity report. I'll turn it back to you, Ms. Pierce.
Thank you. So I have a brief administration activity report today. CBA Executive Officer Dominic Franzella opened the first all-staff meeting of 2026 in February with an amazing team-building activity, set a positive collaborative tone. He outlined key CBA priorities for the year, emphasizing empowerment, ownership of work, and strong planning and oversight. His message reinforced our collective commitment, innovation, and advancing our mission of consumer protection throughout 2026. As I mentioned in the prior agenda item, the Administration Division is automating per diem reporting for CBA and committee members. Members will submit their activity and time through a simplified form accessed via a staff-provided link, and the new process is expected to launch in April or May. Transitioning to business modernization, staff continues to advance the CBA's project through several different activities. Work is underway building the CBA's enhanced audit function following the transition to continuing education self-certification. This project includes updates to the CBA Connect platform and development of a new internal data management and reporting application that will integrate with CBA Connect. An internal license renewal enhancement is scheduled for launch next week that will automate the updating of a licensee's regulatory review course completion. Following the successful rollout of credit card payments for exam candidates in December, staff has begun additional improvements to further streamline the candidate experience, including simplifying the process for requesting testing accommodations. That concludes my presentation on this item. I'll now turn it back over to President Lotta, and I'm happy to answer any questions the members may have.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. I had a question on the automated process for the per diem. How much do we expect that to expedite the reimbursement process? And does that include the travel claims as well?
Initially, we'll roll it out. Our initial plan was to roll it out for per diem and then add in the travel expense claim part. But it may end up being launched at the same time. We're pretty close to being launched for it. I hope that it will perhaps decrease the time, but a lot of the time that it takes to get those processed isn't necessarily internally with CBA staff. It's more at the department level, getting that processed and then through state controller's office for the travel expense claim. So there definitely will be some efficiencies on our end with the electronic reporting. So that may carve off a little bit, but overall, there's still a review process at the department that it has to go through.
Okay, so that automation is our internal board process, not the DCA.
Yeah, other boards do it differently. Other boards have a similar process. And so this is really just to kind of ease it, not just for staff, but really for the board members. So it'll be a link. It'll be a very easy fill in the information form. There will still be a requirement to obviously to submit receipts for the travel expense part. But we're hoping that at least on the per diem side, that this will streamline it and make it a lot easier for reporting for the members.
Okay, great. Any other board member comments or questions on the administration activity report? Oh, Ms. Dong.
I'm probably misreading it. There was something where if it goes over 4 hours, if an activity goes over 4 hours, it counts as a full day.
Yes.
But then there's another part of the paragraph where it said it has to add up to 8 hours. Am I misunderstanding that?
So the proposal that the board approved was that time could be reported in 30-minute increments. So you can, for example, I could see where if you're doing a training class or doing a policy acknowledgement, and you can report those in 30-minute increments. And when those increments equal 8 hours, you get a day of per diem. However, if you're at a board meeting like today that is over 4 hours, then you would automatically get 1 day of per diem.
So if you use the 30-minute increments and you hit 4 hours, you wouldn't get per diem.
Those 30 minutes would need to equal up to 8 hours and you'd get a full day of per diem.
Okay.
So it's really to kind of capture a lot of the activities that aren't full day activities. They aren't board meetings. They're a policy acknowledgement. They're an hour training course. They're a call with the executive officer, a pre-call meeting, those kind of things, to be able to accurately capture those times and still, have those build up to a full day of per diem.
Okay. That makes sense. Did we have another, Ms. Tu?
Can I clarify also, the thing that drives me nuts is having to do the MapQuest for the mileage. Is the automation, would it be simplified or no?
Well, I'm going to crush your dreams on this one, Ms. Tu. So we still have to submit a map to show the mileage, and that's not a CBA staff requirement. That's a documentation for Department of Consumer Affairs and the State Controller's Office to pay. So the form, the online form that we're going to be transitioning to, it's going to still ask you, do you have mileage to report? And then if you do, it's going to say you'll need to submit, you know. So, but if you need staff assistance in terms of, you know, producing those maps, just, we can have that be an option on there, but that would still need to be
No, I don't
included.
want to bother staff, but I just thought of a way to get out of it. It's, I need to save those map.
Oh.
My home to airport, it's going to be the same every time.
Yeah.
So I just need to save those maps.
Yes, any other board member comments or questions? Okay, I will save public comment until we get to the end of these items. So I'll move on to item 5C, Enforcement Activity Report provided by Carrie O'Connor, Chief of the Enforcement Division. I'll pass it over to you, Ms. O'Connor.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Carrie O'Connor and I'm the Chief of Enforcement. The activity report before you today covers the first 7 months of fiscal year 2025-26. The CBA has received nearly 1,500 complaints, and the graph on the bottom of page 1 provides a comparison of the total complaints received as of the same reporting period for the prior 2 fiscal years. On page 2, we've included data on the top 3 complaint types, with complaints regarding renewal deficiencies related to continuing education being the top complaint type. Moving on to investigations and investigations pending on page 3, staff have closed over 1,400 cases, with 97% of those cases closed within 1 year, and the average days to close investigations was 71 days. As of January 31st, enforcement had 525 cases in its pending investigations inventory. And since January 31st, 2 cases over 24 months have been closed and 2 remain under active investigation. Discipline-related information can be found on page 4. Looking first at AG referrals, the CBA referred 13 matters to the AG and filed 15 pleadings. The CBA had 20 matters pending at the AG's office, and the CBA took action on 17 final disciplinary orders. Moving on to citations on page 5. The CBA issued nearly 600 citations, and 94% of those citations were due to failing to comply with the 2012 continuing education requirement. The CBA has withdrawn or modified 48 citations, and in most cases, the licensee either provided new mitigating evidence or complied with the issue that resulted with the issuance of the citation. Page 6 contains information regarding unlicensed activity, and the CBA received 65 complaints regarding unlicensed activity, and we closed 99 investigations within the first 7 months. The final area of the report I'd like to highlight is on page 7, and that is probation monitoring. So as of January 31st, we had 49 licensees on probation, with 4 new probationers since the last report. We identified 17 probation violations, and the majority of those were failing to submit the written quarterly reports. That concludes my presentation on the enforcement activity report, and I'd like to turn the discussion over to President Lotta and would be happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connor. Ms. Tu?
Yes, thank you, President Lada. I just want to acknowledge something. Since I've been on this board, I have seen these numbers improve, not only gradually, but in a very positive way. And I just want to give kudos to staff. So keep up the good work and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Ms. Guzman?
Yeah, I'm curious as to, so I'm relatively still new to the board, but how and who makes the complaints?
Yeah, we can receive complaints from consumers, other agencies, the SEC, PCAOB, other state boards of accountancy, as well as the peer review program, just to name a few.
So as a consumer, I'm just curious, I would think, I don't know, that I would typically probably know about unlicensed activity. Like where, so I'm looking at there's So if I just, I'm on page 2.
Okay.
If I look at the different types of complaints, there's license activity, renewal deficiency, peer review. Where did your general public complaints typically fall into? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it would, so these are the top 3 complaint
Oh, okay.
types.
Okay.
So those, are less than the 5%, which is
Okay.
the third highest complaint type here. So,
Mr. Franzola?
Yeah, and I think Ms. O'Connor mentioned it in terms of you're only seeing the top 3. So if you go to the prior fiscal year, you'll see unlicensed activity that would have likely been predominantly generated by consumers in that particular instance. So it could fluctuate in those top 3.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
generally, consumers, most of those tend to be professional standards related issues, technical issues, and those oftentimes aren't our number 1 complaints. They might be the most you see for the discipline, but they might not be our highest complaint volume.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other board comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. O'Connor. We will move on to, excuse me, item 5E, the outreach activity report. Wait, I skipped D. Oh, sorry. The licensing activity report, which will be provided by Suzanne Gracia, Deputy Chief of the Licensing Division.
Thank you, President Lada. I'm Suzanne Gracia, and I'm the Deputy Licensing Chief. This licensing activity report, or LAR, covers July 1st, 2025 through January 31st, 2026. The LAR begins with reporting of processing times, and I'm pleased to report that our processing times are below 30 days. Attached to the LAR, you will find the NASBA CPA performance summary for the 4th testing quarter of 2025. The licensing division received close to 17,000 telephone inquiries and slightly more than 39,000 email inquiries. That's a total of more than 55,000 inquiries. Table 3 shows the CBA approved 3,706 first-time applicants to sit for the CPA exam. This total includes 617 early entry applicants and 3,089 non-early entry applicants. Table 4 shows the CBA approved 2,266 applications for new CPA and firm licenses. Table 7 on page 6 shows the CBA performed 557 audits. Of the 557, 408 were found to be compliant. 43 were initially deficient but are now compliant. And starting this year, January 2026, the CBA transitioned renewal applications to self-certification, allowing CPAs to self-certify that they have completed their CE requirements instead of providing their specific CE details. This allowed the CBA to increase the number of renewal compliance audits performed. As shown in Table 8, the current licensing population is 116,097, which is an increase of 701 since November 30th, 2025. That included 67,426 active CPAs and 7,071 active firms. This concludes my presentation. I will now turn it back over to President Lada and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gracia. Any questions or comments on the licensing activity report from the board members?
I have a question.
Ms. Batchelor?
On page 3, the CPA exam statistics from 2024, 2025 year to present, this particular year, 2025, 2026, it went on a downward trend. Do you have any stats on reasonings for that?
So it could have been done, result from CPA evolution. Prior to CPA evolution, we had that big increase in testers wanting to get their exams done before the new exam took place in 2024. And so after the new exam was launched,
then the applicants kind of decrease from there a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a quick question. If I'm interpreting the report correctly, for the first 6 months of the fiscal year in Table 3 on page 3, it's showing we already have received 4147 initial exam applications. And on Table 4, page 4, it shows we've already received 2233 of license applications. So is it safe to assume we're expecting an increase of those applications this fiscal year compared to the prior 2 years, since the 25-26 is just the first 6 months of the year, correct?
I would just kind of caution comparing this data from this fiscal year to last fiscal year. We are bringing our trends report in September. And so I think that would likely more show if we're expecting, show more the trajectory of the applications that we'll be receiving. Right now, it's kind of hard to tell if we're just receiving an influx because it's getting, people are getting ready for graduation, or if it's just, or if it's actually increasing.
Okay, I understand. I was just looking at it more from like, if I take like the monthly amount of applications and try to annualize that out, that would assume like the cadence continues to be the same. But I understand you're saying there could be an influx and that amount may not necessarily be the same or double over the next 6 months. So we'll be able to see a clearer picture in September with that report. Okay, great. Ms. Zielinski?
On table 8, where it says accounting firm out of state, it looks like from fiscal year 2024 to 2025, there was a big drop. Do we know the reason? Are out of state firms just failing to register to practice in state? Yes, Ms. Zielinski. So we actually had, I'm sorry, I have an actual note on this. So there was, we had a different method of calculating the OFRs. And I'm sorry, I cannot find the date that we started doing it. So there is a difference between the last fiscal year because we were calculating them a little differently than we are now. And so now we're able to report the more accurate number. Okay, thank you.
It's
Mr.
actually,
Franzella?
thank you. It's in the footnote on that particular item. And so I think they were reporting both current and expired under the old iterations, and now we've carved out that expired group.
Thank you.
Any other board comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our 5E outreach activity report presented by Mick Murray, our outreach coordinator.
All right. Good morning, President Letta and members of the CBA. I am Mick Murray, the Outreach Coordinator, and today I'll be presenting item 5E, the Outreach Activity Report. I'll start with a quick recap of the first 7, in fact, the first 8 now CBA Campus Tour events of 2026, 8 counting yesterday's event.
Wow.
The campus tour had 3 virtual events, starting with De Anza and Foothill Colleges, a community college district, then San Jose State University, and Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. The campus tour also had in-person events at Chico State, the University of San Diego, and UC San Diego, and of course, CSU East Bay. We did have an additional campus tour event virtually last week. This one focused not so much on the students, but more on community college leaders from across California. At this event, our licensing chief, Michelle Center, presented an overview of the proposed process that would allow community colleges to have a certificate program recognized by the CBA, which can substitute for 6 months of the general accounting experience requirement. Giving community colleges this information now allows them the opportunity to initiate discussions about building their own certificate program. At both of our San Diego stops, as well as our stop here in Hayward yesterday, President Latta headlined by discussing her career and the value of a CPA license. Our executive officer, Dominic Francella, opened the presentation with the role of the CBA, And Information and Planning Officer David Hemphill walked students through the current and upcoming licensure requirements. Staff were also present to answer students' questions during and at the conclusion of each presentation, and transcript reviews were performed on-site also at the UC San Diego event, as well as the event here yesterday. I know the licensing team was very busy for 3 hours, booked out every single slot. So thank you very much to our licensing staff.
Wow.
One exciting thing about our 2 San Diego events is that there was a reporter present from Bloomberg Techs to observe our campus tour events firsthand. So her visit was to help her prepare for an upcoming article focusing on how state boards of accountancy are communicating recent changes to licensure requirements. In fact, it's no longer an upcoming article. It was published directly before our outreach yesterday, and the CBA's efforts and the campus tour is very much front and center of the article. I also saw it was posted on Instagram, and they have 84,000 followers when I checked. So we're getting good coverage for our outreach initiative, which is really nice. The spring leg, spring 2026 of the CBA campus tour still has 9 additional stops to make over the next few months, with CSU Fresno, which has just been added to the 8 colleges that are already listed in the report. So we're very excited to continue to inform and help as many students as possible across the state and help improve their understanding of these upcoming changes to CPA licensure requirements. So while the campus tour focuses mostly on aspiring CPAs as well as faculty, we've also had the opportunity to attend additional events that target other CBA audiences. So one of these in late January, the CBA hosted a webinar with information for licensees called Accounting in Action, Key CBA Updates and Emerging Trends. So aimed at licensees, this webinar featured a panel of experts, including President Latta, Member Rosenbaum, and Cal CPA President and CEO Denise Leduc-Fruming, CPA. Executive Officer Francella opened the event with updates on the mobility changes that took effect January 1st this year, following the passing of AB 1175, and also the new continuing education self-certification process for license renewal. The response to this event was huge. In fact, it was slightly too huge, and we exceeded our webinar's 1,000 participant capacity. So staff has since identified a solution to increase the number of participants we can have in these webinars. And also we posted a full recording of the event the morning after the presentation. So anyone who wasn't able to enter the webinar was able to view it the next morning. In early February, Executive Officer Francella spoke at Cal CPA's Day at the Capitol 2026 in Sacramento. Mr. Francella participated in the event's fireside chat, which was hosted by Cal CPA President and CEO Ms. Fruming. He provided an update on AB 1175 implementation and discussed private equity, artificial intelligence, and more. Later that month, on February 28th, the CBA connected with high school students this time at the Manteca Career Fair, which was presented by Manteca Youth Focus. Students were able to stop by interactive booths, including a CBA booth. They're able to meet and speak with professionals and learn more about different careers, including careers in accounting. I was joined at this event by board relations analyst Rebecca Reed. We had several highlights. We had an impromptu interview with the local mayor about the CBA and the work that we do in the accounting profession in general and why young people may want to consider becoming accountants, as well as photo opportunities with a man in a giant squirrel costume, which I was personally very happy about. Moving on to multimedia content, the CBA released the first podcast episode of the year featuring President Latta. President Latta spoke about her CBA priorities for the year, discussed the many interesting roles she's held throughout her career, and touched on her dedication to organizations like the National Association of Black Accountants. Last week, it was Consumer Protection Week, and the CBA highlighted National Consumer Protection Week on all of our social media platforms. And each day we focused on a letter from the acronym SERVE, S-E-R-V-E, standing for Safeguard, Exams, Education, and Experience. We put those 3 E's into 1 E. Regulation, Verification, and Enforcement. The week started with a video featuring Executive Officer Francella, again, introducing the week and detailing the CBA's mission of consumer protection. The rest of the week had short videos highlighting that day's letter, and those videos were presented by staff from different units across the CBA. So these were shared as reels on our Instagram page as well as our LinkedIn page. On to the update newsletter. Issue number 108 was published at the end of last month, the end of February. And this issue was completed in only 2 months, which I believe is a new record. This expedited timeline helped us align our update production into the new quarterly schedule. So it's published now on a regular basis once every quarter. Issue 109, the next one, is currently in production, and that will include some more anniversary features, including an article and a timeline focusing on the first 40 years of CBA history. There will also be an update on the progress of the AB 1175 regulations and more. So this is expected to be published at the end of May. And lastly, an update on our social media engagement. In the first 2 months of this year, all of our social platforms gained a collective 457 new followers. Facebook saw an increase of 103% in content interactions, and Instagram achieved an increase of 31% in terms of overall views. LinkedIn, which is our biggest platform by far, had good success on a post educating aspiring CPAs on the 30-month CPA exam credit window, and that received almost 10,500 impressions and 420 direct clicks. So that concludes my presentation on this agenda item. I'll turn it back over to President Latta. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray, for that detailed update. We've been doing so many things in our outreach lately. Do we have any board member comments? Ms. Tu?
I do have a comment because yesterday I was at the faculty presentation and the faculty made a point of the fact that CBA's new website is so much more user-friendly, and what a big improvement. So again, kudos to staff.
Any other board comments or questions? I have a few comments myself. I just wanted to also applaud staff and the outreach team for this great work. The campus tour has put an additional burden on staff to travel a lot more frequently. So we appreciate the time that you take away from your families to do these extra in-person events and keep up with this rigorous schedule. But it's very important to get the word out to students, and our tour is being well received. We got that feature in Bloomberg Tax, which is really great. I also did share at the NASBA Pacific Regional meeting that we were doing this campus tour to get the word out to students, and it was well received by members of the other state boards in our region, and they were very excited about that, and they thought it was a great idea, and it was something they thought they might do a similar thing as well once they get to that. So I did also have a question about, we included that student survey QR code at the end of our presentations. Do we have any feedback or trends from that? Yeah, I know it's relatively early, so I was just curious.
Yes, so at the end of every event, the virtual ones as well as the in-person ones, as of this year, we're showing a QR code, and that asks them, it leads them to a survey that asks them a few basic questions. How did you find the event? Are you glad you attended? We try to gauge their understanding of the licensure requirements before and after attending the event. And we have an open-ended question at the end if they have any suggestions or comments on how we can improve these events going forward. Like you say, it's pretty early, but every event we do tend to get some responses, and overwhelmingly it's been positive so far. I look at the survey at the end of every event, and the only bit of constructive, I wouldn't call it criticism, but feedback was to try to make the events a little more interactive. And so that's what we've been trying to do by adding more polls, asking more questions in the in-person events to try to make it a little more interactive with the students from the very start.
Okay, that's great. And I've seen us gradually implementing that each time, asking them more questions, encouraging them to not have to wait till the end to raise a hand. So that's been really great. I did want to also point out, I noticed in our report, we don't have any updates in regards to outreach to firms. And I know we're focused on the students and the faculty at this time, but as we approach our January 2027 implementation or the live date for our new legislation, I just want to make sure we're also communicating with the firms and that they're seeing these changes as equal and not like valuing a master's degree over a student who is doing the new pathway. Colin Stevens from Cal CPA, who attended our outreach yesterday, did say that he's heard from the firms that they are viewing them equally and not one is better than the other, which is something students are concerned about, and they don't want to disadvantage themselves by taking the new pathway. So I just really think it's important to make sure the firms are in full support of this legislation and they're not having a bias to one or the other. So I am eager to kind of add that to our outreach activities, however we plan to tackle that. I know it's not the top priority at the moment, but since big firms are already hiring those students for the 2027 year and giving job offers, I just want to make sure we're kind of getting ahead of that as well. So, Ms. Corrigan.
Yes, I just want to point out that at some of the events, like the spring banquets and different ones that we're invited to, do include a component of firm as well as students. And so, and there's active, disclosure of the changes and interaction there. So at least to some degree, we're approaching that. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Ms. Dahl.
Maybe just a comment to point out that the CBA has been around for 125 years, which is half the amount of time that this country has been a nation.
Yeah.
So it's very remarkable. I mean, a very young country as well. Perhaps that's what it's pointing out. Do we know when the other CBAs were established, or not CBAs, but boards of accountancy in other states, or are we the oldest one around?
I can't speak with certainty about the other, many of the other ones, but I do believe the first one was New York in something like 1897 or I want to say. So they predate us, but we're obviously on the front end of the regulatory framework.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I will move on to public comment for items 5B through E. Any public comment here in Hayward on those items? Seeing none, moderator, please open public comment on these items.
Thank you, Madam President. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name, or if you've called in, pressing *3. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. I see no request for comment. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Okay. Okay, thank you for your patience. We are going to go ahead and take a brief break and we will resume at 10:45. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue on with agenda item number 6, report on the Enforcement Advisory Committee, Peer Review Oversight Committee, and Qualifications Committee. We don't have a report for the Enforcement Advisory Committee, so we will move on from 6A and move forward to item 6B, the Peer Review Oversight Committee report, which will be provided by Fausto Hinojosa, CPA, Chair via WebEx.
Good morning, President Lara, members of the board. I am Fausto Hinojosa, Chairperson of the CBA's Peer Review Oversight Committee. I'm pleased to be here to provide the report of the PROC meeting, which was held at the CBA headquarters and on WebEx on February 25th. I would like to thank CBA liaison Douglas Aguilera for providing an overview of the CBA's activities from the January 22nd CBA meeting. PROC members attended 4 report acceptance body meetings since our last PROC meeting. The PROC members reported that the report acceptance body meetings all met expectations. PROC members reviewed 2 out-of-state administering entities, Peer Review Alliance and New England Peer Review, Inc. It was determined that they complied with the administrative procedures and standards in all material respects as established by the CBA. Mr. Rich Samidian, Director of the California Society of CPAs peer review program, also provided a presentation of the peer review program to PROC members. On behalf of the PROC members, we thank Mr. Samidian. Lastly, the PROC approved the draft 2025 Peer Review Oversight Committee Annual Report, which I will present during the next agenda item. The next PROC meeting is scheduled for May 20, 2026. President Lada, would you like me to continue on to item B2, presentation and possible action to adopt the proposed Peer Review Oversight Committee 2025 Annual Report?
Yes, please continue.
Thank you. So item 2 of my report is the presentation and possible adoption of the proposed Peer Review Oversight Committee 2025 Annual Report. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my fellow PROC members for their dedication and hard work over the past year. The proposed 2025 PROC Annual Report includes information on various activities and accomplishments, information on the oversight functions performed by the PROC, and various statistical information. 2025 was a busy year for the PROC. We held 3 public meetings, observed 22 report acceptance body meetings, observed 2 AICPA peer review board meetings, with a total of 8 AICPA oversight reports for out-of-state administering entities, and conducted an annual site visit of CalCTA, the administrative entity of the peer review program in California. Administrative site visit to CalCPA, which I will refer to as the ASV, is the most comprehensive oversight activity that the PROC performs. PROC members Laura Ross and Alan Gittleson performed the ASV in 2025, and licensing chief Michelle Center observed the ASV. An overview of the ASV can be found beginning on page 7 of the report. Unlike previous years, which relied entirely on a fixed list of topics, this year's ASV process was enhanced to include discussion of current issues. Those discussions covered topics such as peer reviews for firms with alternative practice structures, implementation of the AICPA's new quality management standards, and the categories used to describe why firms exit the peer review program. Moving on to the 2025 PROC Annual Report, includes data from 2021 through 2024. As reported in Table 6 on page 18, a total of 823 system and engagement peer reviews were performed on California firms in 2024. Of those, 78% received a pass rating and 15% received a pass with deficiency rating. Overall, the PROC found that the California peer review program is meeting the requirements set forth by the CBA. The PROC recommends that the CBA adopt the proposed 2025 annual report, inclusive of the recommendations for future oversight, which are listed on pages 26 and 27 of the annual report. Specifically, those recommendations would direct the PROC to continue to monitor the California peer reviewer population and pipeline of reviewers, continue to ensure that Pennsylvania Institute of CPAs is meeting the CBA's peer review requirements while assisting CalCPA with peer reviews, who proposed updates to the peer review program associated with firms who utilize alternative practice structures. Finally, identify a process and timeline to regularly obtain a list of firms that resign from the peer review program. I would like to turn this discussion, the discussion of this item, back over to you, President Lada, and I'm happy to answer any question members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hinojosa. Do we have any board member comments or questions on this item? Ms. Batchelor?
Yes, thank you, President Lara. I have a question about the firms resigning from the peer review program. Do you have any information in terms of why or stated reasons?
Don't know that I have the stated reasons, although we can reach out to AICPA and see if they gather that information. But a firm that resigns from the program, they're allowed to resign voluntarily before the peer review has commenced. Once the peer review has commenced, then they're going to either be dropped from the program or be terminated from the program. And there's a distinction between those two terms as well. But as to the reason why they resign, they may no longer be performing a test type services and may not need a peer review. Obviously, if they're in California and performing a test services, then there you have to report to the Board of Accountancy, and so would not be able to simply resign without any repercussions. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yes, it does answer the question. I was just curious, are they resigning because of the peer review? That's where I was pretty much getting at.
That's a good question. Yeah. So I think if the peer review has already started, they can't, then they would not be, again, in the category of resign. They would category of terminated once the peer review has started. Now, if they're in the system and prior to the peer review starting, they don't reach out to resign, then the AICPA can drop them, which is different from the termination. The termination, again, is once the peer review has started, then they drop, they won't resign, they will be formally terminated, which seems to be more egregious.
Yeah, because basically that would be lesser firms offering attest services, and with those attest services going away, that impacts our new candidates coming into the profession. That was the main reason for my my question, because that is a particular service that's needed, you know, on various levels of practice areas. So,
Sure.
but appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Ms. Corrigan?
Yes, thank you for your service to the PROC. And I had kind of along the same lines was thinking about the firms that are resigning. And I know in the last few years, and I think also as a part of enforcement and seeing some of the smaller firms coming through, they may do one or two attest engagements and maybe they have a huge tax practice, whatever it is. Finding it costly and difficult maybe to stay in that arena could be reasons such as that. I believe that California is notified when the AICPA drops someone from the program. Am I correct about that? We are notified when they are dropped from the program?
I believe that the board is notified when a firm resigns, drops, or is terminated. And staff may be able to confirm that, but that I believe that that is the case.
Mr. Franzella?
We receive notifications in basically 3 areas: fail peer reviews, terminated, and dropped.
But not resigned.
Not resigned, which is, and for all intents and purposes, we didn't even know it was a category until
Right.
about 3 months ago.
Right.
And I don't think there's not a huge distinguishing characteristics between dropped and resigned, other than one's voluntary and one happens because they're not paying their fees or their dues to stay enrolled in the peer review program.
Right. So this really did catch my interest because I got to thinking there would be some number of those, whatever that might be, and it would be interesting to know why. And so in the recommendation for the PROC to identify a process and a timeline, I guess that process and timeline would then be turned over to enforcement for potential monitoring of, say, somebody that has resigned and should be in there, or maybe they're resigned because they are having difficulty, you know, maybe they're violating something, whatever. And so the idea being that there could be enforcement activities necessary, is that part of the idea?
Yeah, Mr. Foster, I can take this. This is Michelle.
Thanks.
Correct. The PROC recommendation for oversight is really just to assist us in working with AICPA to come up with a process for the notification. The notification is really for our enforcement division, just like it is right now for the other categories that Dominic just mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other board member comments or questions?
Just a question about this, since I've never been on the PROC committee. If you pass with deficiency, are there corrective actions that need to be taken? And how many times can you pass with deficiency before you actually fail?
That's a good question, and probably best answered by CalCPA. However, in my experience, if you have a pass with deficiency, then yes, there are corrective actions that will be required by the report acceptance body. And so your peer review is not fully accepted until you comply with those corrective actions, which might include having a pre or post issuance review of an engagement subsequent to the peer review period. Might include just having to take some CPE. However, those actions are monitored by Cal CPA's team and must be completed in order for the report, for the report to be accepted and for the firm to continue.
Okay, Mr. Franzella.
And to the second part of your question, how many times can they pass the deficiency? There's not a hard and fast rule in terms of after 2 pass with deficiencies, it turns into a fail. What it is they monitor if you're not correcting those pass with deficiencies. If it's a second report with the same types of deficiencies, those could elevate to a fail because obviously you're not showing taking the necessary steps to correct those. But if it's something different and new, that in and of itself wouldn't just turn it into a fail just because you had a prior pass with deficiency. It's really if it's the same thing over and over in subsequent peer reviews.
Ms. Corrigan?
Yes, and it is in every firm's best interest to correct those and have a clean report because it's public information and most firms are going to use that for marketing and showing potential clients, hey, look, we passed with no deficiencies. I mean, they use that as a tool. So it's more of a troublesome firm maybe that wouldn't make the effort to do that, but it's in their best interest to do that and have them corrected. The monitoring process of them can be quite extensive, expensive, and everything else if that's what is imposed upon them by the program.
I have another question.
Ms. Bachelor?
Yes, I have another question about the cost of the service for peer review. Do you find that it's more smaller firms opting out of the program and because of cost of peer review, or how does that work? Or just more national and the Big Four is more involved in staying in the program?
We have data on what firms are deciding to not offer those particular services that would require them to undergo a peer review.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to underscore that I think it's important to recognize that peer review might be a component of why they're not doing it, but in a lot of instances, might not be the sole or specific reason why they're stopped doing it. It just may no longer be cost effective for their firm. Fees that they need to charge to their clients just aren't consistent with what they're, able to do the services for. So I think there's a multitude of factors that lead to a firm no longer doing peer or needing to do the attest work to keep them enrolled in peer review.
You can't elect not to do peer review. I just want to make sure that is clear. It is not voluntary. So it is, if you do certain work, you must do peer review. So the election is whether or not you do those particular services.
Well, it's a condition of licensing in California if you're doing that kind of work. So, yeah.
So how is it possible they can resign then?
That would be because they're no longer doing those services. They would make that indication that they are resigning from that program.
Okay. Do I have a motion, Ms. Tu?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to approve the PROG's 2025 annual report and continue to provide guidance to the PROG concerning its oversight activities.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Ms. Hines?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any additional board member comments or questions? Seeing none, any public comments here in Hayward?
Jason Fox of the California Society of CPAs. I listened to the conversation, and I think I know we've had conversation with staff about having our peer review team do a kind of a good overview, kind of foundational about the program at a future board meeting that might be helpful with some of these conversations. I do think you guys are kind of pointing on a broader kind of profession dynamic of consolidation in the attest kind of function within the marketplace, which I don't think is specific to a peer review. It's a lot of different factors, as Mr. Franzella and Ms. Center kind of alluded to, and something that we're looking at and having conversations around. But certainly good data point to kind of monitor from a peer review standpoint, from a licensing standpoint, and just kind of what's happening in the marketplace.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Any additional public comment here in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator, please open WebEx for public comment.
Thank you, Madam President. Our only attendee at this point is a DCA staff person.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Reed, please take the vote.
Member Zelensky?
Yes.
Member 2?
Yes.
Member Thompson?
Yes.
Member Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Member Rayful? Member Lynn?
Yes.
Member Lotta?
Yes.
Member Hines?
Yes.
Member Guzman?
Yes.
Member Dong?
Yes.
Member Corrigan?
Yes.
Member Batchelor?
Yes.
Member Aguilera?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. All right, we will be moving on to agenda item 6C, the Qualifications Committee. And we have Jeffrey Moline, CPA, chairperson, to give this report.
Good morning, President Lata and members of the board. I'm Jeff Moline, Chair of the CBA's Qualifications Committee. I'm pleased to be here and provide an update on the activities of the QC today. Since January 2026, the QC has convened 2 subcommittee meetings and conducted interviews with employers and applicants to review work papers of attest experience. As a background, the QC conducts Section 69 reviews when staff believe additional or clarifying information is needed from a California licensee who has signed a certificate of experience, or when a licensee fails to submit a certificate of experience or comply with a request for an explanation of experience. Personal appearances are conducted to ensure that experience obtained outside the United States meets generally accepted auditing standards. Or when staff believe additional clarifying information is needed about a certificate of experience signed by an out-of-state licensee. In total, there were 3 applicants and their employers appeared for Section 69 reviews, and 1 personal appearance was conducted. 2 applicants were recommended for approval and 2 were recommended for deferral. The next QC subcommittee meeting will be held on March 25th, 2026. Additionally, Vice Chair Tim Jones attended the outreach event here at CSU East Bay, speaking to current accounting students and offering insights on the benefits of a career in public accountancy. That concludes my report at this time. I'll turn it back to President Lata and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moline. Any board comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. Do we have any public comments here in Hayward on both 6B1 and 6C1? Seeing none, moderator, are there any members of the public online?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 7. Discussion and possible action on meeting minutes. This item is for approval of these minutes. First, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of the January 22nd to 23rd, 2026 California Board of Accountancy meeting, specifically agenda item 7A, which includes non-substantive edits that were noted after the materials were received? Ms. Tu?
So moved.
Get a second from Ms. Thompson? Thank you. Any additional board comments or questions? Seeing none, any public comment here in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator, I'm confirming there's no members of the public online?
That is correct.
Thank you. Ms. Reed, please take the vote.
Member Aguilera?
Yes.
Member Batchelor?
Yes.
Member Corrigan?
Yes.
Member Dong?
Yes.
Member Guzman?
Abstain.
Member Hines?
Yes.
Member Lotta?
Yes.
Member Lynn?
Yes.
Member Rosenbaum?
Abstain.
Member Thompson?
Yes.
Member 2?
Yes.
And Member Zelensky?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now can I get a motion to accept the committee minutes, specifically agenda items 7B through 7D, which includes non-substantive edits that were noted after the materials were received? Ms. Thompson?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Ms. Dong? Thank you. Any additional member comments or questions? Seeing none, any public comment here in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator confirming no members of the public are online.
That is correct.
Thank you. Ms. Reed, please take the vote.
Member Zelinski,
Yes.
Member Two,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Member Lynn,
Yes.
Member Lotta,
Yes.
Member Hines,
Yes.
Member Guzman,
Yes.
Member Dong,
Yes.
Member Corrigan,
Yes.
Member Bachelor,
Yes.
Member Aguilera,
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Okay, now we are moving on to agenda item 8, other business. And we actually have no reports from the AICPA meetings as well as the NASBA committee meetings. So that concludes that agenda item. We can now move on to agenda item 9, which is the report on the Committee on Professional Conduct and Enforcement Program Oversight Committee. And I will be turning it over to Vice President Aguilera for that report.
Thank you, President Lotta. Yesterday's CPC meeting included discussion on 2 agenda items, starting with CPC item 3, which was discussion and possible action regarding issuing a comment letter in response to the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, or AICPA's, Professional Ethics Executive Committee exposure draft titled Proposed Revisions Related to Alternative Practice Structures, dated December 29th, 2025. Staff noted that this was a continuation of our discussion regarding the topic of alternative practice structures and private equity investment. During the CPC meeting, staff provided some information on the response letter we sent to NASBA on its white paper and included the response letter we sent in our materials. As part of the CBA's discussions back in January, President Lotta appointed CBA member Thompson and me to assist staff in reviewing the AICPA exposure draft and preparation of a draft comment letter. In our discussions with staff on the AICPA exposure draft, which is attachment 1 in our materials, we focused on 2 main questions. 1, can the CBA or other state boards of accountancy effectively regulate and enforce the proposed changes? 2, do the proposed revisions continue to effectively provide for a strong standard of independence, not just in fact, but in appearance? As staff noted during the CPC meeting, these 2 questions also serve to prepare the draft response letter. Staff indicated this approach allows CBA to focus its communication on its consumer protection mission while also giving the AICPA direction on how to look at the proposed revisions to the Code of Professional Conduct to assure practice, enforcement, regulation, and independence are maintained. Regarding the ability to effectively regulate and enforce the proposed changes, staff noted that as a regulator, it is of paramount importance that the rules and standards are as clear and precise as practical. Given the degree of sophistication and interpretation necessary to evaluate the differing circumstances, that's an understatement, and scenarios proposed in the AICPA exposure draft, it does not appear that the proposed revisions promote a clear and precise model. As it related to independence, both in fact and appearance, staff noted revisions appear to focus almost exclusively on technical independence, i.e. fact, and fail to actively or effectively address the appearance of independence. This approach seems to deviate from the normal approach for the Code of Professional Conduct, which has historically sought to promote this function by erring on the side of caution. The proposed revisions appear to create carve-outs for permissibility at the expense of perception. In doing so, it could create a tone that appearance is no longer required or necessary. The CBC had a robust discussion on the issue of whether alternative practice structures with private equity ownership has a place in owning CPA firms. Mr. Rafel shared that he believes the comment letter should indicate the CBA doesn't support the alternate practice structures with private equity ownership in CPA firms as it is not in line with its consumer protection mandate. This response would emphasize the CBA's influence based on having the largest licensee population and ensure the CBA is included in the national discussion on the professional standards. The CPC discussed asking AICPA to provide information regarding why they believe it is appropriate to have alternative practice structures with private equity ownership in a CPA firm, and what, if any, analysis it did regarding these ownership structures. Therefore, the CPC recommends that the CBA approve the proposed comment letter with the addition of a question requesting AICPA provide their analysis explaining how alternate practice structures with private equity ownership in a CBA firm is appropriate. The CPC further recommends the CBA delegate these edits to staff in consultation with the CBA president to finalize the letter. This is a fully formed motion and a second is not needed. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, President Lotta.
Thank you, Vice President Aguilera. Do we have any board comments or questions on this item? Okay. Oh, Ms. Hines?
Oh, yeah, actually, I have a couple. I was trying to organize my thoughts about it, but one of the questions I had was about the peer review oversight committee raising the recommendation to include oversight of these CPA firms with alternative practice structures into their oversight. And in the January letter that we sent, comment letter we sent, we did have a comment about that to the, I'm trying to find the letter now. I've got caught up a little bit. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry. It's the attachment 3. So we sent it to the NASBA Private Equity Task Force, and then we had a question about, a comment about peer review oversight. But then I didn't catch that there was a response from, the task force about that peer review oversight. So I'm asking the question because if the PROC is asking for the authority to oversee CPA firms in this, with this alternative practice structure, is there going to be some guidance about how that authority would operate? Like what kinds of things that they should be looking for or changes? I'm not asking because I expect you to answer it. I'm asking more so to make sure that the discussion is taking place, because this response is focused on, 2 specific issues, but I didn't see anything that talks about what the response was back about the issues we raised in the January letter.
So was there a response, Mr. Franzella, from NASBA?
No, and just as a general on comment letters like these, you're not going to get responses back. That's not, you tend to raise issues, and even if you pose the question, it's more of a rhetorical question for them to be thinking about. As it relates to this alternative practice structures, especially with private equity investment, the profession and the peer review program have shifted all of those to be done by the National Peer Review Committee. That so they're all being housed over there. And so what the PROC was kind of getting at was more of we would just make sure the board wants us to continue to look at that and watch how that process plays out. So I wouldn't expect a response back. I think part of this whole process is trying to figure out how APS and PE is going to be peer reviewed, who should be doing it, and they've reined it into the national firm kind of approach right now.
I appreciate, I didn't expect a personalized response. I guess the response I more wanted to hear about, a discussion about, because I know this is an ongoing, issue because there's a task force. But what I'm wondering is, in the context of like all of the issues that are being discussed and analyzed, is how there might be a difference in peer review occurs when you have an alternative practice structure, a firm that has like, to what extent is that rising to the level of, comments and discussion that will have some resolution? It may not be the biggest priority, but given we just adopted the PROX, annual report, and one of their specific requests was for peer review, to be expanded or evolve, based upon these alternative practice structures. I just wondered, to what extent is that rising as a level, as an issue as well? Or maybe should the comment letter be further revised to include just that statement, like we also have received from our peer review committee that this is something that is important, to be, continue to be discussed and analyzed in these evaluations. Yeah.
I'm going to start and let you finish. And the start is in terms of the exposure draft. I think one of our points is that it's not specific enough for us to even design, a peer review program in order to regulate. I'm not sure that that's exactly the answer to your question. And so I'll let Mr. Frenzel in.
So I think to try to, so the PROC was being responsive to the fact that peer review is being responsive to this issue. So the peer review program at the ICPA level has taken steps to say, okay, we recognize the maybe higher risks or the different peer review kind of approach that needs to come with firms that are in an APS structure, especially with private equity. And so the national model pulled all of those firms into their national peer review committee. So they were being responsive to the fact that this is an issue. When the PROC raised it in their report, one of the things, just from a operational standpoint, the PROC is limited to what it is authorized to oversight, review, provide comment on, react to the board, until the board says, yes, you need to add this to your list of things that you're doing. And that had not occurred yet. So this occurred at the end of late last year, that the AICPA pulled all of these into the NPRC. PROC was aware of that. PROC brought this to the board to say, do you want us to keep thinking about this, watching how it's unfolding on the national level, and report back to the board? So the ask to this board was really just to give it the authorization to kind of do it. But I think the underlying question is that the peer review program is reacting to APS, and they're trying to figure out how to accommodate doing effective peer reviews in this space. And we'll see that kind of unfold over time. As why it's not maybe brought up in this particular comment letter is the audiences are a bit different in terms of what the peak task force is authorized to do and what their responsibilities are compared to what the boards of accountancy are when we're responding to NASBA. So that's probably why you're not seeing a lot of duplication or overlap in the two kind of letters.
That's helpful. And this is such a complex issue, generally, and, certainly for someone outside of the accountancy, biz. Although we are seeing, similar issues arise in the, legal, field as well, and in medicine, and I mean, in other places. But, I just think it's really help. I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate the level of detail in the materials that are presented. And, any additional information that can be provided, to give us to keep us aware of what some of the issues are that we might be missing, particularly us that are outside of the accountancy practice, would be really appreciated. So if there are other articles that come up, or other, just resources that may be helpful, they could be included in future reports and discussions that come back to us about these issues.
Happy to.
Any additional member comments or questions? I wanted to add a few comments to this discussion. I think often when we speak about alternative practice structures, it's usually from a contrary lens, warning of the potential negatives, negative impacts to the profession and consumers. And Ms. Dong raised a point during the committee meeting that the investment in technology can benefit the profession and improve operations. And I just wanted to note that although we absolutely need to make sure independence is maintained in fact and in appearance, and we have to ensure that consumers are protected, that there could be some potential benefits that firms could implement and once they utilize the capital from these investments. Some things I thought of note would be better technology, which can improve efficiencies, and firms working through audits and taxes, which could provide that faster service to consumers, in addition to expanded service offerings they can provide in consulting and advisory. Also greater investment in hiring and recruiting, having those funds to have higher salaries to attract and retain top talent can provide more quality services for consumers. And in addition to business modernization, as the firms have this additional capital, they can adopt more quickly and have higher turnaround or quicker turnarounds for clients as they provide work for them. So I also wanted to mention that small businesses may have access to better services. These alternative practice structure firms often offer fractional CFO services, potentially future subscription-based models that could be more affordable for a smaller business. So while this is a very sensitive topic and we need to make sure we do our job to protect consumers, I did want to put some positive and potential benefits that could be out there for consumers on the record, because typically we always talk about this from the contrary perspective. So I just wanted to note that, and that I'm also in support of our comment letter that the committee brought to us today. Any additional member comments? All right, seeing none. Any public comment here on this item in Hayward? Seeing none, moderator, are there any members of the public online?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Reed, please take a vote.
Member Aguilera,
Yes.
Member Batchelor,
Yes.
Member Corrigan,
Yes.
Member Dong,
Yes.
Member Guzman,
Yes.
Member Hines,
Yes.
Member Lotta,
Yes.
Member Lynn,
Yes.
Member Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Two,
Yes.
and Member Zelensky.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Okay, we will be moving on to agenda item 9A2. I'm passing it back over to Vice President Aguilera for that presentation.
Thank you, President Lotta. The next agenda item discussed was CPC item 4, discussion and possible action regarding the modernization of continuing education requirements. The CE modernization project consists of 5 phases. The first phase focuses on modernizing the CE regulations to address technological changes, improve clarity, emphasize quality, and make structural changes. Whereas phase 2 is the rulemaking process to implement the phase 1 changes. To accomplish these phases, staff are currently drafting regulatory language to bring to the July or September CBA meeting, focusing on the prior board decisions noted in the item attachment. Staff explained that it is likely that any changes to the CE requirements themselves require statutory changes, which is why we are working on these changes in phases 3 through 5. So this heavy workload has been divided up into those things we can accomplish now as a result of all the activity over the last maybe 9 to 12 months, and then those that are ongoing, the bigger item. Ms. Center shared information she gathered during a recent focus group of CE experts and CPAs. And while this was a small group to start, one of the key takeaways was that continuing education fits within a larger paradigm of professional development. The CPC noted the focus group's support for continuing education being restricted to technical subjects only. There is no action requested on this item. Instead, the CPC welcomes feedback from the CBA on the CE modernization project regarding the current set of regulations that are being drafted and topics to include in future information gathering activities regarding CE subject areas. The CPC recommends that the CBA provide feedback in support of drafting a rulemaking package in support of Phase 2. Additionally, provide input on subject areas for inclusion in future information gathering activities in support of Phase 3. That concludes my report. I'll turn it back to President Lada.
Thank you, Vice President Aguilera. Do we have any board member comments or feedback for the agenda item? All right. One second, I just lost my place there. Right here. Okay. All right. Do we have any public comments here in Hayward on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none. Moderator, do we have any members of the public online?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on to agenda item 9B, report of the Enforcement Program Oversight Committee. And we have Ms. Hines providing this presentation.
Thank you, President Lada. During yesterday's EPOC meeting, members discussed EPOC Agenda Item 3 related to the preliminary initiatives identified by staff to strengthen the CBA's efforts in detecting unlicensed activity and providing consumers with the knowledge and tools needed to protect themselves and report concerns to the CBA. This was an informational item. The CBA's 2025 through 2029 strategic plan has two goals related to unlicensed practice in public accountancy. Objective 1.1, targeted initiatives to identify and investigate unlicensed practice in public accountancy. And Objective 4.7, improve consumer awareness of unlicensed activity and fraudulent financial services by providing clear guidance on recognizing, reporting, and avoiding unlicensed individuals posing as CPAs. The identified initiatives, which are outlined on pages 2 through 4 of the item, are as follows. 1, reviewing renewal applications for licensees with a prior status of delinquent and assessing their online presence for indications of practice during that period. 2, monitoring individuals who reported to the CBA as not practicing or with a canceled, revoked, or surrendered license status for indications of unlicensed practice in their online presence. Strengthening partnerships with other federal and state agencies to identify potential unlicensed practice. 4, working with the CBA outreach team to educate consumers on recognizing unlicensed activity and reporting concerns pursuant to Outreach Objective 4.7. 5, lastly, researching AI-based tools that can assist with identifying unlicensed activity across the internet. Staff welcome member feedback regarding any additional strategies to address unlicensed practice. I will turn it back to President Lada for discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Do we have any board comments or questions on this item? Seeing, Mr. Lin.
Thank you. I see the outreach is good, but I would like to ask for the consumer education. It would be helpful to understand how to plan to measure whether the outreach effort are effective increase for reporting the potential violation. How's the staff plan to measure the to measure if it is if effectively for the consumer to report, how do they measure it?
Mr. Franzella?
So I think before we can answer that question, we need to figure out what steps and tools we're going to be taking in order to increase our outreach. I don't know if there's a specific metric that we can tie it to at this point because we're just now starting this. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't say you would see necessarily correlated to an uptick in unlicensed complaints because we have a lot of fluctuation in that area. So it'll take us some time to figure out the methods that we're doing and then how we can gauge whether or not it's having the impact we want.
Ms. Hines?
Can I just add, we also had the discussion, and this might be helpful for Member Lynn. We had the discussion about the cadence of reporting back progress on developing the tools and implementation during the committee meeting yesterday. And so maybe one of the things that we can bring to the next committee meeting is discussing with staff as they're developing those tools to develop them in such a way that they do incorporate measures for effectiveness, so that then when we're reporting back to the full board about our progress towards accomplishing this strategic goal, we will have some kind of measurement of what that effectiveness, is. So I hope that might, also hopefully help with responding to your question.
Thank you.
Mr. Aguilera?
Yeah, I just have one comment, and that is that maybe the average consumer doesn't even know that CPAs are supposed to be licensed. And how important it is before hiring or buying CPA services to do the quick lookup on the website. Anything that can educate the consumer, one, that CPAs are in fact licensed or should be, and two, how easy it is to look up that CPA before hiring them.
Ms. Hines?
And I would just add, I think that's a really good addition, a good point. And I think also a definition of what it means when they see something on a CPA's license, like, what that it may mean that there are a variety of ways for the public to be able to interpret it. And I think that just would be an additional, helpful piece of information to be included.
Yes, and just to add to Mr. Aguilera's thought, maybe even the types of services that CPAs provide, because a lot of members of the public aren't clear on that either. So maybe that's something we can educate on as well. I did have a question in regards to reviewing the online presence as part of this process. Does that entail websites, all social media accounts? Is there anything else besides those things that includes?
I think, well, part of the reason for us having this discussion is to get feedback from members about items that should be included as part of that outreach effort. So just us discussing it now, that will, I'm sure be collected by the staff that are, responsible for this item. And then in the next meeting, we can have maybe some report back from the staff about the methods, some of the methods that they've already identified for that outreach. So, we can take that back.
Okay, I guess just to add some detail behind that, I was thinking not only reviewing like their LinkedIn accounts, but potentially like Instagram, TikTok, their social media forms of advertising, Facebook, potentially online ads of some sort, which maybe could be detected through like a Google search, just a general Google search of that person. Those are just top of mind things that came to me. Any additional member comments or questions? Seeing none, any public comments here in Hayward on this item? Seeing none, moderator, are there any members of the public online?
No, there are not.
Okay. I would also like to take public comment here in Hayward on agenda item 8. which were those AICPA and NASBA items that we didn't have any reports on. Okay, seeing none, moderator confirming once again, no members of the public online.
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to agenda item 10. 10A is agenda items for future California Board of Accountancy meetings. Do we have any agenda items from members? Seeing none, any items for, or any public comment here on this item? Seeing none in person, moderator confirming no members of the public are online.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. We will now convene into closed session to deliberate those closed session matters. So our CBA meeting, or once closed session is completed, the CBA meeting will adjourn. Thank you.